What's going on, Jets fans? This one I did a dive into some numbers to predict what could be a realistic expectation for running back Breece Hall coming off of the ACL tear. And this is not a legitimate statistical analysis that would ever lend any credibility. If you're an actual statistician, you'll be pulling your hair out with this one. This is just a dude who got a B- in calculus at the University of Buffalo using Pro Football Reference and a calculator to make some educated guesses. But this guy who's on the screen, this tweet is Deepak Chona, who is a Harvard educated sports surgeon. And he tweeted out that Breece Hall, machine learning AI plus running back ACL data predicts a strong comeback. He went on to say that Breece Hall has the makings of a running back one. Running backs average 10 months to return. Week one will be 11 months since Breece tore his ACL. Pulled together, running back production dips for 18 months post-injury, but Hall fits the outlier mold. Young, 96 percentile athleticism, high draft pick of running backs who recover faster. So I pulled together a sample of running backs and I made them fit 4 criteria. Number one has to be somewhat recent, at least since 2000. I know ACLs have come a long way even since then, but I wanted a big enough sample size. So I made a little bit of a trade off with the recency there. So we're going to get running backs since 2000 who had tore their ACL between weeks 1 and week 10 in that similar window where Breece did. I don't want guys who are over 30. So we're going to say 27 or younger at the time of injury. And we need an elite talent, right? I know Breece Hall, we're not going to give him a Hall of Fame jacket yet, but we can all agree what we saw was special, dynamic, elite talent. So I'm going to pick guys who made just at least one Pro Bowl and wasn't a huge list. Here are the guys: Edgerrin James, Jamal Lewis, Ronnie Brown, Jamal Charles, Adrian Peterson, Dalvin Cook, and Saquon Barkley. I had Adrian Peterson there with an asterisk. In purple, I was almost going to remove him because he skews the data so much as an outlier. But then when I got to Saquon Barkley, he's such an outlier in the opposite direction. I'm like, okay, I'll keep all of them in there. And that way we have the 7 different data sets to work with. So if we take a look here, this is the difference in both yards per attempt and yards per game. So efficiency and volume that these players had when comparing their year previous to the ACL tear, their full year previous, and then the year after when they came back from the ACL injury. As you can see across the board, pretty significant dips. An overall average of a 16% reduction in yards per attempt and 29% reduction in yards per game. So actually, the reduction was more significant in their workload than their efficiency as a collective. Now, if we apply this to Breece Hall, so on your left-hand side, this would be Breece Hall's prorated stats if he played 17 games on the same pace last year: 1,158 rush yards on 5.8 yards per clip, 66 yards per game. So if we took that prorated 2022 and we projected it to meet the average return season of all those running backs that we comped are similar to Breece Hall, he would maybe, if we just stamped it all together, have 822 rush yards on 4.9 yards per attempt and 47 yards a game. Now, again, there are dozens of variables we're not accounting for here, not even close to a perfect science. You could also argue that they were ratcheting up Breece Hall's carries. So if he did never get hurt, he probably would have had more yards than that, on and on and on. But that in and of itself, I think I'm okay with that. And the news gets better. As I was watching the game logs, tracking and calculating, I noticed that, okay, as we're getting later in the year in the post ACL season, the numbers are going up, up, and up. So I took the same set of data and I just took weeks 10 and beyond on the post ACL year, and the yards per attempt was only 9% less, and the yards per game was only 22% less, when previously it was 16 and 29% less, respectively. So essentially, if this all checks out, we could expect weeks 1 to 10, Breece Hall being at 64%, about 2/3 of his workload, his rushing volume, the first half-ish of the season, and at about 76%, 3/4 of his 22 rushing efficiency. And then weeks 11 and plus starts getting a little colder. He is now getting towards 18, closer to 18 months post ACL tear, we could expect 78% of the rushing volume. And here's the number that really gets me excited: 91% of his rushing efficiency. As all of these players, the back half of that post ACL surgery, they were really, really close to that same yards per attempt clip. And that's what gets me excited is, okay, if Breece Hall only gets 800 yards, yeah, I can live with that. I'm not saying we're the Miami Heat of 2013 and the regular season doesn't matter, but come on, we have postseason aspirations. And I think Aaron Rodgers can be efficient enough of an offensive maestro in the regular season, especially that first half. And then the back half, you're getting Breece Hall, even if the workload's not there and he's still touching the ball 15 to 18 times a game, but it's at 90% of that ridiculously efficient Breece Hall we saw in 2022. That is the dynamic elite number 2 weapon to Garrett Wilson that can absolutely have the Jets go on a deep playoff run. But it's complete and utter speculation. Just somebody who loves crunching numbers. And that's what I put together. Thanks for hanging out. Go Jets. We'll talk ball.